Everyone told her not to open the box. Every single person who loved her, feared for her, or just whispered behind her back. The dusty chest had been locked away in the attic of her grandmother's house since before she could remember. And now, 27 years after she had last touched its lid, Miriam stood before it again, heart pounding, hands trembling, as the rain outside drummed against the windows like the echo of forgotten memories. The attic smelled of mothballs, old wood, and secrets. Her grandmother had passed just 2 weeks ago, and Miriam was the last surviving family member left to pack away a life full of heirlooms and haunted silences. She hadn't planned to stay long. She didn't plan to cry. But when she found the key hidden in a yellowed envelope labeled only with her name, Miriam, she froze. That name hadn't been used in years. Most people now called her Mira, a name she adopted when she ran far from the trauma of her past and the strange, unspoken rules her family lived by. Never open the box. Never ask about the past. Never trust what came wrapped in sorrow. But the envelope hadn't just contained a key. It had also contained a letter in her grandmother's shaky handwriting. One day you will be brave enough. I only hope it's not too late. Now here she was. The box was plain, carved from a dark wood no one could quite name, etched with symbols no one ever explained. People said it was cursed. Her uncle called it a prison. Her cousin once claimed to hear whispering from inside it during a storm. Miriam kneeled and inserted the key. She paused one final time, breath caught in her throat, then turned it with a soft click. The lid creaked open. And then, suddenly, voices. Small, trembling, and heartbreakingly familiar. "Mimi," one whispered. "Mimi, is that you?" another asked, tears tangled in the words. The third simply sobbed, but it was the voice that made her collapse to her knees. No one had called her Mimi since she was 6 years old. That was the year her little siblings vanished. Triplets. Born with light in their eyes and laughter that filled the house. Their disappearance shattered everything. No bodies were found. No clues. Just a cold spring morning and an open window. Miriam had been blamed in silence, too young to understand, too wounded to fight back. And now, their voices alive? She looked inside the box. Her breath hitched. 3 small figures sat there, curled like frightened animals, eyes swollen from endless crying. Children. Real. Pale, trembling children in tattered nightclothes. The same age they were when they vanished, 6. Her brain screamed impossibility, but her heart knew. Elijah? Sadie? Tom, she choked out. They lifted their heads in unison. Mimi, they cried and rushed toward her. She caught them in her arms, their little hands clutching her tightly as if she were the only solid thing in a world gone mad. Their skin was warm. Their sobs were real. Miriam trembled as she held them, years of grief breaking inside her like a shattered mirror. How are you still little?" she whispered. "They kept us in dreams," Tom said, voice small. "We weren't supposed to grow." "The box is like a time bottle," Sadie added. "Only you could open it." Elijah looked up, his eyes too old for a child. "You were supposed to forget." That's what she said. "Who?" Miriam asked. But the attic darkened. The air grew thick. The light bulb flickered and blew out. A coldness spread across the room as if winter had crawled through the walls. "She's still here," Tom said, clutching her harder. The shadows moved. A whisper curled through the air like smoke. "You broke the promise, Miriam." Her heart dropped. Her grandmother's voice, warped and angry, came from nowhere and everywhere. "You were never supposed to remember. Never open the box. The children were safe there. The world is not ready for them." "No," Miriam said, rising slowly, shielding her siblings. "You didn't keep them safe. You hid them. You trapped them in fear and dreams because you were too afraid of what people would say, what they would do if they found out what they could do." Elijah stepped forward. "We can see things," he said softly. "We see the world that's hidden. The parts that sparkle when no one's looking." Sadie added, "She said we were too dangerous." She said people hurt what they don't understand. The shadow at the edge of the room hissed. I saved them. No, Miriam said again, voice steady now. You imprisoned them. The attic shook. Dust rained down from the rafters. The box began to close on its own, trying to draw the children back in. No! Miriam shouted. You don't get to silence us anymore. With trembling arms, she lifted the box and threw it across the room. It smashed against the wall, splintering into 100 pieces. The wind stopped. The darkness receded. The attic fell still. The children breathed out in unison, as though released from an invisible chain. They turned to her, eyes full of light. We're free now? She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Yes, babies. You're home. That night, the four of them sat under a blanket in the living room, wrapped in warmth and healing. Miriam didn't know how the world would react. She didn't know how to explain what had happened. But she knew one thing, she would never let them be hidden again. Their gifts, their hearts, their beautiful strangeness, it would all be protected, not punished. When morning came, she made pancakes shaped like stars, just like their mother used to. And as the sun spilled through the windows, catching in the triplets' laughing eyes, Miriam realized something powerful. Sometimes, the boxes we're told never to open are the ones that contain the very pieces of ourselves we've been missing. Sometimes, healing begins where fear once stood. And sometimes, the impossible is just a story waiting for someone brave enough to believe. She had opened the box. And in doing so, she opened her heart. And the door to a future no one else dared to dream.